Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to the new Brit workshop. I have from time to time been giving you progress reports on the two sets of chest of drawers that I'm making. Well, they're pretty nearly finished, and as you might see, I'm just waiting for the tops to be done. I've got the tops made ready for veneering, but I haven't got the veneer. And that will be the subject of a separate video because hopefully I think it might be interesting. But in this video I'm just going to show you some of the little bits and pieces of woodwork that went into creating what you see behind me. Now I'm not going into all of it because you've seen me make frames for drawers. If you look at my pedestal desk project, for example, you'll see exactly how I made most of this sort of construction. Lots of dominoes and lots of routing on the router table. Now I've got a whole bunch of rebates to cut now for the bottoms of the drawers, and one of the things that I've said time and time again is that when you're trying to do them on a router table, then almost always you're going to get some of the debris and dust coming out of the end here. Well, you live and learn, don't you? I've discovered that with the CMS-OF unit you can do a very simple trick. There's two parts of the hose. One goes to the router itself and the other part goes to the back of the fence. Take this piece off and block it off, and if you look here I'm just putting it over one of the handles of my pillar drill. So it's essentially that's more or less blocked off. Now you look at the amount of dust that comes out from this end. Not only have we not got any dust coming out of the end, but look, the channel is completely clean. And the reason for this is that I'm concentrating the power of the vacuum in the pickup from this point here. Now this happens a lot, particularly with my projects, is that you get something to the assemble stage and then you realise there was something you should have done earlier. I need some packing pieces that go to the left and to the right of these drawer runner sections, which I've done here. And the reason for them is that if a drawer goes in without them, then the drawer can move to the left or to the right as it goes up against the veneered MDF on the side panels. So what I need is packing pieces that go in here so it's a clear, smooth run for the drawers on either side. How am I going to glue them in? I could put some glue on it and then nail gun them, making sure that the nails didn't go all the way through. I could use screws the same way, but here's what I've done. I've cut a couple of pieces of fairly thin wood, so they're just longer, and I'd say by about 1 centimetre than the gap that they're going to fill. And then by bending them, they then have a spring action. And now I've got this one and there's one behind springing my two packing pieces that I've just fitted into position. They're holding them there whilst the glue goes off. I'm just making some minor adjustments to the drawers, just a bit of sanding really, just to get them to a perfect fit. I thought I should show you this base. Now this is made of essentially 4 pieces of wood, and if I show you a piece of the actual cross section, it's really each of these pieces here is made of 2 pieces of wood. There's the oak, which is the face here, and then I've got some backing wood here, which in this case is tulip wood. And between them they make quite a substantial base for this set of drawers. Now what I really want to show you are 2 things. The first is the actual profile that I've used. And if I bring this up close to the camera, you can actually see that profile, and it's lovely. And I'll show you the cutter as well. Now this is the same one that I used on the pedestal desk that I made. Here is my practice piece, and this went through like so, and there's that profile there. And you can see the other bases under here, under this set. I've not joined it on in any way, it's just sitting there whilst I'm doing some other jobs. But the other thing I want to show you about this is just how neat these joints are. These joints have not been sanded in any way. All I've done is I've just glued it up, and I used one of my Bessie strap clamps around this to hold it together. Nothing else. There are no screws, there are no dominoes, there's nothing else here, and these are perfect joints. Look at that there. And look at this one, another absolutely perfect joint. And when this is sanded, it will look beautiful. And all of these were cut on the Kapex saw. It was adjusted into the 45-degree Mitre location. And I did a test cut before I did all of the joints. I did a cut and I checked it for square on this back edge here. It was a tiny, tiny fraction out, and it required me to make a very minor adjustment to the saw, and that was done with a pair of screws which are at the back. I made a very, very slight adjustment, fixed it, and then it was back in action again, making these absolutely superb mitre cuts. I'm now just going to give you an idea how I'm going to go about fixing these bases onto the pedestals. Now, I have done one already, but I'll just show you how I went about it. Now, the key thing is I want some screws to go up through the base into the bottom of the cabinets. And I know exactly where the centre line of the woodwork of the bottom of the cabinets goes. Now, I've measured it and I know that it is exactly 20 millimetres in from this outer edge. So I'm just going to score 20 millimetres all the way around. And if you've not got one of these, you really must get one. It's an Incra Precision T-Square. I got mine from the Woodworkers Workshop a long time ago. I bought two, and I just could not be without them. This is the 150 millimetre one. They do a much bigger one, which I have, which is 300 millimetres. Which I find very useful, but this is the one I use most, 150 millimetre. And so there we go, that's pretty easy. And you get a special pencil that goes with it, or you may have one of your own. It's 0.5 millimetre lead. Now that's where I want my holes to come out, and so I'm going to start by drilling them from this side. And I'm just going to mark out where they're going to go. So that's where they're going to go. So I'm going to drill from this side. If I start my drilling from this side, that means at the interface where this joins on to the main carcass, I know that the hole will be in exactly the right position. If I drilled starting at the other end, there is a good chance, particularly when, as I'm going to have to, I'm using some long drills, that the drill can wander off and not be in the exact right spot. Now I've got a 5 millimetre brad point bit in the drill, and I'm going to use this to go down most of the way. And I'm using it on my drill press, and that will keep things as square as I can possibly get them. So I've done that drilling with the brad point, but it's only going through about 50, maybe 60 millimetres. So I'm now going to finish it off with an extra long 5 millimetre drill. I'm just going to use it in this hand drill because it will follow the line I've already drilled. And I'm just going to go around doing that all the way around. Now you can see that one has just come out just there. The screws I'm going to be using are 5 millimetres in diameter, and they're 80 millimetres long. Now the total depth of this is 93 millimetres. So if I take 80 away from 93, I get 13, but I want the screw to come through by 20 millimetres, so that makes a total of 33 millimetres that I need to have a countersink hole going from this side. And I'm going to use one of the brad point cutters which I got from Axminster not so long ago. This is a 10mm brad point cutter. Now, in order to judge the 33mm of depth, I'm going to put some masking tape around here at the appropriate place. I'm going to measure 33mm, and I've got my thumb there. And I'm just going to put masking tape around here quite tightly. And I'm going to put this in my little Festool CXS, which will manage this perfectly well. Now, the problem now that we face is that these holes come all the way through, so my tip of my brad point is not going to find one of those holes. But I've got a nifty neato solution. I've got a piece of Perspex. Perspex is important because you can see through it, and I've cut a 10mm hole in the Perspex. I actually used that brad point cutter to do it. And I'm going to place my piece of Perspex over this such that the hole is concentric with the hole I've drilled. And that's why it's useful having this piece made out of Perspex. And that now will help me guide this drill into the right place. Now, I found with this technique, what you have to do is to get the drill up to speed before you try and start the cut. So I've just loosely got it inside the hole, so it's going to be guided for position by the Perspex. I'm going to bring it up to speed. And then do the drill. So one more demonstration just here. So position it. Start the drill and start it with a positive action. There we go. Very easy indeed. And that now leaves a very nice hole. The screw can go in there and it will be set at the right depth. Now here's my test piece, which I deliberately made a little bit on the long side. You watch this. Okay, there's a little fillet. There's that fillet, and if I now put this in here to give this a little bit of support, I want you to note there's not a tiny bit of a gap around there at all. And if I now put this in the next position, no gap at all, but I can put it in all four corners, and it's absolutely perfect. Absolutely spot on. So I'm now going to make 8 of these altogether. There's one. And I'm going to use them just to reinforce these corners slightly. The reason I'm doing that is I want this to last at least 100 years, maybe 200 years. And having seen furniture that's been moved around the world, I think this would be a good idea. And a sneaky touch, putting that for someone to discover in years to come. And I'm just sticking these fillet pieces into place, just pushing it in there. Holding these in place is quite tricky. I could put a clamp on here, but then it'd be pushing against my nice smart mitred corner. So I use this method. I've shown this once before. It's a piece of wood cut slightly long, and it now pushes one against the other. So that is enough now to hold that in place whilst the glue goes off. And I'll now do the final one over here. Now these sponge-backed abrasives from Festool that I've spoken about before really come into their own when you're dealing with mouldings which are in a regular shape. They can't quite go into all the nooks and crannies, but when it comes to a piece like this face here, it's absolutely perfect. Well, that's it. I've done the Osmo as well, so it's all now waiting for the tops to be done. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.